G'day guys and welcome, my name is Michael and I am the Dead Aussie Gamer, your guide to all things tabletop role-playing game-wise. Today we are going to be talking about being a better role player. What does that mean and, well, how can we do it? Well, first and foremost, let me start by saying that this video is not a video about role-playing right or role-playing wrong. Everyone who gets into the role-playing game and has fun with friends is role-playing right in my opinion. But there's always room to get better, even with tons of experience, having played thousands of games over countless years. There's always room for improvement, and we're going to be talking about some of the ways that we can improve our own styles of roleplay. Firstly, let me start by saying that I find that many people roleplay right out the gate with something inherently missing from their character. Now, not everyone does it, but for the most part, I find many tables devolve into a sense of just a group of avid people with different build ideas and different character concepts being hodgepodge together in an adventure and then bond during the course of the adventure. Now, this is perfectly fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But I feel like there are three questions every character needs to have the foundations built for a great role-playing game experience. The first question is, what investment do you as a player have in your character? Now, this answer needs to be a role-play answer. It can't be, I really wanted to play a cleric, so I've played a cleric, and this is what I've made, and I wanted to be a healer, so I got all my healing bits. Yeah, okay, that is investment in your character, but not investment in your character. And that's what we're looking at. If your character is motivated by vengeance, is your character motivated by love, a sin maybe, or perhaps they've got a vested interest in stealing shiny things. Whatever the case may be, your character is an evolved part of this world. It exists in the narrative, and as such, it should have some investment in itself. Why does your character go on this adventure and wake up in the morning? What drives them to their next adventure? The second question is, what investment does your character have with the narrative you're being told? Now, there is an unwritten rule in a lot of game tables that you are going on this adventure with your players, the GM has written it, yada, 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 yada. And you are obliged to follow through with this adventure, unless you're playing in a sandbox game. If you are going along with the adventure, then why not include a reason why your character is invested in that adventure? I've recently run a Skull and Shackles campaign. It is a Pathfinder adventure path, which sets place in the high seas. We've had lots of people come and go over the time, and we are now into, I think, book 3, and no one even remembers who this Captain Harrigan was, let alone have any vested interest in this evil pirate's success or failure. So when you come into it, it's always a great idea to have an idea of, okay, well, I know that we're playing a pirate game. I know that we're trying to develop infamy. I know that that we hate this Barnabas Harrigan for some reason or another, like maybe he tortured the other group or whatever the case may be. So when you come into the game, have a vested interest. My character, he is an old dock worker. He got laid off because he got drunk and rowdy, and some of his comrades threw him under the bus. He got a little bit rowdier, as it were, ended up killing a bloke by accident, and is now on the run from the cops. With very little work going around, he decided to turn to a life of piracy. And no sooner than he'd done so, but then he was shanghaied into a crew that was indeed led by Barnabas Harrigan, who beat him, whipped him, and kept him working like a dog for months at a time before he finally managed to get free. And sure enough, you have an investment in the narrative. I want to join you guys because I still need to be a pirate. It's the only life I know available to me right now. And you guys hate this Harrigan guy? I hate this Harrigan guy. To hell with that Harrigan guy. And now you're bonding over the narrative. The third thing is bonding with other player characters, right? What investment does your character have in the success of the group? So it's very tricky because sometimes people play selfless characters who are out for the greater good and stuff like that. But I always find you get an extra something when your character has a selfish investment that is shared by their fellow players or their fellow characters. So in this case, let's continue on with this pirate individual. I seek vengeance against Harrigan because he actually shanghaied us. All of a sudden you learn that the original players were also shanghaied. Get out of town! We're now bonding over this. So that's how you started this adventure. That's what happened to me ages ago. I mean, I really, really wanted to kill this Plug guy. And whether or not they'd killed Plug or whether or not they'd spared Plug, all of a sudden you have something to bond over and sort of relate with. And that starts up conversation, that starts up character development, relationship building. All of that begins to happen because you are now invested in the success of your fellow players. And in turn, you are developing your relationships to make that success come true. So those are the fundamentals which lay down the massive groundwork that you need to roleplay great. You can do this with any character. In fact, every character should really be doing this kind of thing. Because with good foundations means that you are encouraged by your own story to roleplay better. The next bit is looking at what motivates us in a scene. Now, when we look at a scene, we're obviously talking about like our characters being approached by a scenario that the GM has presented. This could be a monster attacking. This could be us finding some new relevant information about the story as it unfolds. When we find out this information, what we do in a scene is often determined by either ourselves, in our logical mind, as we assess the threat, we determine the risk, and we decide this reward is or is not worth the engagement. Our hearts, where if you are, like me, really into your character, what does your character feel? How do they go? What kind of sense of purpose do they have in this particular scenario? And of course, lastly, your gut. And if you've got a gut like mine, you've got a good gut, where it comes down to your experience as a player feeding into your knowledges and what you instinctually know is about to happen and what could happen, should I say. Let's talk about the logistical side of things. So the mind, as it were. Now, role-playing while the mind is your rationale is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it, but it can teeter on the side of metagaming. It is not metagaming by default, but you can often find that people use their knowledge outside of the game in order to determine the decisions they make in-game. This could be motivated by self-preservation. I put a lot of effort into building my characters, therefore I do not want my character to die. That's perfectly fine. Turning around and going, oh, I don't want my character to die. I know that there's a troll. I know that I've got some alchemical flasks. I'm going to use the alchemical flasks. This conversation happening within the mind does not then get communicated to the group. And it kind of comes across metagaming, even though really it isn't. Your players are not psychic, and the bit of advice that I can give for the logistics side of things is to vocalize. It's the greatest way to do it. The basic equation for a logistical role player is, what is the scenario? Accept and acknowledge this is what is happening. Then assess the risk. What do we need to expend? What effort do we need to put forward to achieve victory? And then once victory is achieved, what reward do we get? Now, this algorithm is used in many players as a staple. Doesn't matter what the character is, doesn't matter what scenario it is, doesn't matter, any situation, they would just go, okay, situation, risk, reward. And that's it. If you get that kind of player as a GM, you can encourage roleplay by role-playing the options that they have available to them. For example, let's say an orc has burst into town, accompanied by 5 other large, burly, strong, mighty orcs, and they've decided to tear people apart, limb from limb. But your players have gone, you know what, we've just done a battle, and we're like half strength with our healing spells. I don't really feel like we can take on 8 orcs right now. Now, because they've vocalized it, you as a GM can then go, Alright, well that's fair enough. The orcs turn to each other. Alright, boys, spread out and find all the treasure you can. All of a sudden, the orcs split off into groups of 2. Now that equation changes as the risk now becomes, oh yeah, we can totally take out 2 people at a time. Let's go do that. And the reward is, well, you don't leave people to die and your alignment doesn't shift, or maybe the orcs have something valuable, whether it be treasure, knowledge, whatever the case may be. And that is how you can kind of encourage better role-playing from a logistical role-player. Now, the heart role-player, like myself, is a dainty little thing. It's a butterfly who loves their character, who's involved in their character, whose spirit animal is this character that they've crafted. They know everything. If you ask them what they ate for breakfast, they will tell you with a bold voice, I had a grapefruit with a dollop of whipped cream. You know, like, whatever the case is, they are the people who are impassioned by their character and their reaction. And often, they will act even against their character's interests if it means that their character gets to express themselves in their very intricate stories. The best way for these people to be a role player, better role player, should I say, is, and I mean this in the nicest way, is shut the hell up and use that energy to boost up not only yourself, but the person next to you, right? If you can turn that energy into encouraging that communication from your other players, you are intensifying the type of roleplay you are going to open up to yourself. I know, at least for me, and I know many people are going to go, oh, well, that's just because it's you, you know, this advice isn't really good, yada, yada, yada. That's fine, you know. For me, I'm very egotistical. You know, whenever I go into character, I go so deep into the character. It doesn't really matter what happens as long as I play out my character well. If he dies, then that was the moment he was meant to die. It's a beautiful death and his story has concluded. But that's me being interested in me. And if I turn that out, if I turn it into an investment in other people, what then happens is I encourage other people to become invested in me. It's kind of like if I want to know something in-game, I generally won't go, oh, what knowledge can I roll? Or can I do this? Or can I do that? Instead, I'll turn to another player and I'll say, that looks really unusual. I have no idea what this thing is. Gideon, what can you tell me? And suddenly they're going, oh, okay, well, what can I roll? Oh, okay, I'll roll this. And then they go, okay, well, I tell you this piece of information. And you go, ah, yes. Well, with that knowledge, I mean, what do you think we can do with it? I mean, perhaps we could use it to gain an advantage, or maybe we should use it to just avoid conflict altogether. All of a sudden, you are now not just role-playing by yourself, by explaining your awesome backstory and things, but you are now role-playing with the other players. And if you go back and forth among them all and continue this ongoing train of communication, you then establish a team. And that is so rare in a lot of tables. A lot of tables you have like 4 players doing individual things, but a good heartfelt role player communicating with everyone, sharing not only their opinions, but trying to drag those opinions out of the people who aren't necessarily the touchy-feely role players. That is how you're going to become a better role player. That is how you are going to become a better player, full stop, and create like a very unique type of role-playing game experience. The last type of guy is the gut GM. The gut player. The gut player often is a GM, and they basically have a great sense of what is about to happen. It's like playing a video game and finding a room filled with guns, ammunition, and things like that. No bad guys in sight, and you as a gamer sit there and go, yeah, things are going to come from everywhere. It's going to come through the walls, come through the floor. I am so dead. Yeah. You know, you don't look a gift horse like that and go, oh, yay, cool, tons of stuff for free. You go, oh, no. It's that gut feeling that these players get when you run your campaign. As you tell the narrative, it might be something along the lines of, ooh, hey, guys, listen, I'm just going to search for traps on this door. Why this door in particular? Well, you see, it's just a gut instinct. It's just a feeling, you know. I think that there's a trap on the door. And sure enough, yep, there's a trap on that door. Called it, knew it. And yeah, these players are great because they're really experienced, and often they'll know the best tips and tricks. They're often people who watch videos just like this before playing a game or while playing a game. And, well, preferably not while playing. Don't listen to my videos while you're playing a game. But yeah, these people are great role players. But what you need to do when you get to that point is understand how to communicate your knowledge and expertise without spoiling the narrative your GM is trying to tell you. Now, I've had more than my fair share of people who have, in my games, picked up on something I've done. This could be something like you walk down a dark corridor. As you do so, you see ahead of you a wall of translucent light shimmering, almost as if there was a wall of water suspended in the gelatinous cube. Yeah, there's a gelatinous cube. It's right there. Yep. I mean, it's fine. It's clever. Yes, you're very smart. But the problem with that is when it gets to that point where you are proud of the fact that you're right about these things, that your gut has proven you well, you can unintentionally spoil the surprise for those people who haven't experienced that scenario, who haven't gone through this. So what you really want to do is you want to practice your communication to allow everyone else to discover naturally what is happening as opposed to throwing it out there as a solution. Because remember that your knowledge as a player is different from your knowledge as a character. So while your gut and your experience might lead you to come to a certain conclusion, your character doesn't necessarily need to reach that same conclusion. So take the time to allow players to fall for traps. Now, I'm not saying, and big not saying here, I'm not saying let people fall into traps. I'm not saying, like let them discover that the old woman was actually an Anis hag and is going to get ripped apart. I more mean play it out in a narrative sense. As you approach the wall, you hear this description of it and you go, hang on guys, listen, I think we need to be really careful about this. There's something not right about it. Does anyone have a stick or something? No? Okay, cool. Places the stick in there. The stick melts. Okay, yeah. We don't want to be anywhere near this thing. See, that is more interesting a role play than to simply yell out, gelatinous cube, and solve the equation. Yes, you as a player already know it's a gelatinous cube. You then need to communicate that in the narrative so that, everyone can enjoy this moment. Including your GM. Absolutely including your GM. Alright guys, well that's all I've got time to share for today. Thank you so much for listening. As you guys know, I am going through a big change right now. Everything is coming up Dead Aussie Gamer, so do be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/deadaussiegamer. I feel like that's changed. Or come over to our Patreon page and help us out with a little donation, because we always, need room to expand and improve, and the more stuff you guys help us out with, then the bigger and better we can make things. In addition, we've actually shifted around some of the Patreon rewards. So now, if you want to join me on a table every Sunday night, 8 p.m. US Eastern Standard Time, $40 a month. That is $10 a game for a weekly session that we run. We are currently running Pathfinder 2nd Ed, Crypt of the Everflame. So, if you're really interested, come on, join in, and be a part of the fun. If you guys wish to, send us a message on Facebook or Discord and ask us your questions, because we are going to be trying to make as many of these videos as we can for you guys, because Dead Aussie Gamer, just like with Ask a Pathfinder, is all about you guys, the fans. We just want to make what you guys are going to enjoy, and hopefully you do. So thank you so much, guys, and for joining us and for liking, subscribing, and everything. And till next time I see you guys, always remember, game hard or die trying. See ya!